attribute editor that you are on the shape node. This control I have has 2 shape nodes, so I would have to change this for both of the shape nodes.
It's just so you know, it's only showing your face.
I'm not even showing my screen. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There we go. Okay, so control selected, attribute editor, shape node, and then you'll have to expand the object display, drawing overrides, and then you enable override and then select the color. All right, and that was one of those things that we did, or we should have anyway, created a script for that. So that's a fairly simple script. If you didn't get yours working, that's a very simple thing that you'll do every time you rig. So I would certainly suggest getting that worked out. Okay. So Tori asked the question, how do you group those 2 controls together? I'm in the middle of the class right now. Thanks. And we actually have to do that via script. So I'll show you how to do that really quick. Pull the right view here really quick. And we'll create a circle. Pull that up. Show the grid. So I'm actually going to bring my pivot point down to meet the bottom of this circle here. Oh, let me do it. Have it down here. I'll just eyeball as best I can. Match it up with the grid, and then I will create a curve here. So those are the 2 parts of the control that I want. We'll just isolate selection. And that gives me 2 separate nodes in my outliner, and I want to combine them. So essentially all you're doing, again, if I right click in the outliner and enable shapes, what I'm wanting to do is take the shape from one node, and I actually want to make that a child of the transform of the other node. So when you code this, this has to be coded to put these together into one transform node. I don't know of a way to do it by hand, just here in the viewport. But before I do this, I always freeze my transformations on those objects and delete your history. Okay, and then we do have to write a little script here. Let's just create a little blank tab. Okay, and I'm going to take this shape. So show shapes again. So curve shape 1. So that's the child object that I'm going to parent into this other hierarchy here. Let's bring up the Python documents here, and we're going to look up the parent command. And under parent, we have this flag here for shape. So the shape command usually operates on transforms. Using this flag allows a shape that is specified to be directly parented under a given transform. Okay. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to say, I have to import my Maya commands really quick. Say cmds.parent, and we first type in the name of the child, so that's going to be curve shape 1, and the parent, so the parent is going to be this transform, nerve circle 1, and then I need to make sure that I add my flags here, so shape true. I think that's it. I might have to do an add. I can't remember. Let's just try that. I'm going to run this command really quick. Yeah. Undo that. Say add equals true. Okay, so that was it. Add equals true. So add will, what am I doing? Preserve existing. Let me try one more. Add did work, but it normally gets rid of the previous shape. It looks like it almost just duplicated it. Just one more flag I want to try here. And that is the, no, I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm pretty sure it's just add. So we'll do that. Add equals true. So there's the code, right? The shape node you want to move, the transform node you want to move it to, and I just specify we're doing this with the shape, and then add is going to add it without creating an additional transform node under circle. So again, we'll run this, and then you can delete the previous, just the plain old curve, and you're left with this single transform object with both of the shapes parented underneath it. You can see both of the shapes here. So as part of your renaming, you would want to come in here and say, for example, like finger control. Anything that had the same name as the control already with shape after it will automatically rename it. But this one did not. So you would probably just take the name of this shape and copy and paste it to control shape 1, like that. And when I showed you guys how to do a rename script, maybe I didn't. I was thinking I was showing you how to also rename the shapes. I may not have done that. But if, again, this is something you do want to script, in your rename script, you could have something for the node you're renaming, could also just use that list relatives command to find the children, and then rename the children with the exact same name, but with shape as a suffix to the end of it. So, but that's how it's done. I know before I just kind of ran a script to do it. It's just a control that I like using, but really the shape doesn't matter one bit. You could just use circles as well. But Tori, since you asked, that's how you go about combining two shapes into one control. So.
Hey Clayton, when you used your script,
yeah,
is it like pulling from a save that you have to create that pin, or are you recreating the pin every time?
I'm recreating it every time.
Oh,
yeah,
baby.
so my script actually, and that, you know what? My script is a little bit slow, and that's because it's building one every time. But you probably could have it build once and have it hidden somewhere and then just duplicate off of that. Maybe when you close the tool, it deletes your temporary one or something. It probably would run a little bit faster, but it is, yeah, it's running through that code every time. Build a circle, build a curve, combine the shapes, rename them, and
that makes sense.
Create a parent group. Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, any other questions? Did I see all of them? Where do you change the colors of the controls? Yeah, did I get everything? Ready to move on? Our keyboard really quick. You recommend mirroring controls, or do you create them for each side with your script? I will show you. I do create them for both sides using the script, and by doing so, it's creating the group node, right? That's going to orient. It's going to position and orient the control with, or at least the control group with the joint. From there, I'll actually show you. You may remember last time, but I have a little process that I use to, once I've visually oriented the controls the way I like them on one side. If it's difficult to do on the other side, I do have a process to essentially mirror and then replace them with objects on the other side. So I will show you that today. I'm going to isolate my selection, and we'll actually do that right now, because actually I'm going to select all of my controls here, not the mesh. Let's bring up the, I want to bring up my little control tool again. And I'm going to change the colors of the hand. Maybe I'll just go with this light blue color. Just something different. That's the selection color. I'll just go with green again. I want it to stand out a little bit from the red or the blue on the arms for IK and FK. This one really doesn't matter. Right now I'm just choosing a color. So these fingers, if you remember, I kind of oriented them so a line up, if that's the way to say that, with the length of the finger. Right. When I created these on the other side, they're turned basically 90 degrees to what I had on the other side. So I could go in and change these by hand. You know, probably a better way to look at this, you remember when I first created them, all of these controls on the left side were actually like flipped upside down. They were in the palm of the hand, and I had to go through a little more of a process to put them into place. But if this were the, regardless, I'm going to take what I have here because I like the way that they're aligned over on the left side. And I want to basically take the same positions and everything and mirror them to the other side. There's not a mirror control command. I just kind of do this process by hand. Okay, so what I do is select all of the controls, and I'm going to duplicate all of them. So I'll hit Control D, and then I will unparent them. So Shift P, and that brings them all out here to the world level. That's because I don't want to mess around with those groups that they were inside of. I don't want to change anything. I don't want to alter the original controls. So I'm just going to copy these just for the shape, just for the aesthetic part of the shape. That's the only reason I'm doing this. So from here, I'm actually going to group all of these into one group so that I have a pivot point here at the origin. And then I'm going to take that group and just scale it across the origin in -1. So let's X scale to -1. And that's placed everything, because the model is perfectly symmetrical, it's placed everything where it should go, and they're already in that orientation that I need. So from here, what I need to do is actually go in and do a similar process to what I did before, where I added a shape to a node, but in this case, I want to replace the shape. So for that, let's bring this back again, our parent command. We do have this flag here as well, remove, to remove only a single instance of a shape from a parent, the path to the shape should be specified. So what I'm going to do is go through the exact same process of adding, and then I'm going to delete the other shape, if that makes sense. So, excuse me. All right, let's pull up this little script I have here again. And this is the shape that I want. Oh, actually, I forgot. I should go through and rename all of these. So all of these duplicate left finger knuckle controls, I'm going to go to Modify, Search and Replace, and I'm going to replace everything that starts with L underscore with R underscore. I have selected turned on. I'm also going to, anything that starts with control or that has control 1 in it, I'm going to change to just control CTRL. So we'll get rid of that little suffix that I placed on duplicate items. So they're all named appropriately. Then we'll go through the process of replacing these. Okay, and this is going to be a little bit problematic, I just realized. When you select an object, you can see right now, well, let's come over here. Maybe you can't read this. Let's increase this. Okay, when I select, say, the spine control, it just returns spine 03 FK control. When I select this is the new right hand, finger 1, knuckle 1 control. It's calling it group 1, right finger 1, knuckle 1 bind control. When I select the one that was already there before, oh, that was the one that was, no, it wasn't. This is the one that was there before. When I select that, it says right finger 1, knuckle 1, bind control group, and then it has the pipe. And then the control, these controls, the bottom line is these two controls, they have the exact same name. And Maya doesn't like things to have the same name. If they do, then it has to refer back to its hierarchy. So this is essentially showing now when I select the control, it has to show the path of the control as well so that Maya knows that they're different. One is different from the other. And that's going to make my script a little bit harder to work with if I have to refer to it using its full name. It just requires more typing. So maybe just for now, I'm going to undo a little bit just to make life a little bit easier. And let's leave that control 1 suffix on there. And now when I select it, it's going to say, oh yeah, there's no other object named control 1 or no other object just named control. So you don't have to use the full world path to the object. And again, that's just going to make it a little bit easier as we go through this little bit of scripting. So we'll go through the same process here. So I want to take this shape. And there's actually 2 shapes here, so I need to take both of them. So I can copy the names over here. So I'll take that shape. And I'm going to be taking this NURBS control shape 2 as well. Below, I'll steal that away in a second. And we're going to be parenting it to this transform. Replace NURBS circle 1. Okay, so right finger 01, knuckle 01, bind control 1. That's my duplicate control. I'm going to add it to the shape list under the right finger knuckle 1, right finger 1, knuckle 1 control. Okay, so let's just run that a little bit. Great. And let's enable shapes again just so we can verify that that worked. Okay, and then I also need to do the same thing with this NURBS circle 2 shape, so I'll just replace this. Run this bit of code. Oh no, more than one object matches NURBS circle shape 2. So I have the same issue actually. So if I select this shape, we'll just select it here and it will return the full path. So I'll just use the full path. Add that in there. I want to try to save myself from having to do that, but it is what it is. All right. So now that those 2 have been added, I'm actually going to delete the previous one. Right, is that it? Delete that. Okay, and then I can come in and delete the shape that was already there. Okay, and I'm left with the shape that I actually want. Okay, now going through all of those steps right now, the way that I did it, that's cumbersome. It's tedious. It's only going to lead to problems. You're going to miss a step. But you script this, right? The idea of select a control. It's as easy as this. Let's pull up the whiteboard here. We're going to select control with the new shapes that we want. Okay, and we're also going to select control to replace. So, and you'd set these to some kind of variables, right? Maybe I'd return this one to new control, and this is perhaps called old control. Do you want me to walk through this? I don't even need to walk through this if you guys don't care to. Is this helpful? Is anyone going to script this?
I'd like it.
Okay.
I was planning on it.
Okay, let's go through
Yeah.
this then. So then you're going to need the shapes for both of these controls. So you need to get shapes of the new control. And we'll assign those to new shapes or whatever you want to name it, right? And we're going to do the same thing for the old control and assign that to old shapes. Okay, and I just said it a minute ago, but you remember the command you used to get shapes?
You mean the parent command? Oh, wait.
Good guess. Someone's going to get it here. Who's going to get it?
List relatives.
Oh, good job. Right, and there's a shape flag, I believe it is. Right, you're going to use that for both of these to get all the shapes. And then you need to loop through your new shapes. Okay, and inside of that, you're going to do what? As you loop through each shape, what do you want to do? Okay, let me get you halfway there. We're going to parent each shape to what?
The joints? No, the groups.
Good guess. We're going to replace. So we're adding what we've newly created, right, to what was already there. So we're going to take each of these shapes and add it to old control, to that transform node. And once you've added them, once everything's done, they've all been added, then we pop back out of the loop and we can delete a couple things. Help me out here. What are we going to delete? If you follow the process I did in the viewport a minute ago.
Isn't one of them the old transform?
Okay, great. So the old transform is the new transform, right? It's the control that I copied from. So I'm going to delete the new control because I've copied the shapes out of new control and I've placed them into old control. The naming I know is a little bit weird because the new becomes the old becomes the new. It's the one we're replacing, but then it becomes new as we add the new stuff to it. But we've taken everything out of new and we've copied it into old. So that means that we can delete the old, the new control. That's the name, right? We can delete this object. And then we can also delete these old shapes. We don't need those anymore. So those are the shapes that were there previously. And so I know this is weird, but let's think about it this way. Let's say this is the control that was already there. Maybe previous control. I don't know. I don't know what the right thing to call it would be. But we'll use our naming convention we've used right now. So this would be old control. And this would be new control. So what we're wanting to do is we want the circle. So we want to replace the square with the circle shape, right? So we're going to take this over. We're going to get rid of this and we're going to replace it with that. Ding. So if we walk through the process again, we're going to select both of these controls. Okay, let's undo a bit. We're going to select the transform itself. Okay, so this has been selected. And then we find the name of this guy. And then we find the name of this guy. List relatives will return all of them. If there are more than one, like there are with this pin, it will give us back all of them. All right, so we've assigned our name here. We've assigned this name down here. And then with the shapes, we've taken this shape and we've assigned this right here. And we've assigned this right here. Okay, so now we're going to take, in this case I only have one shape, but let's change it. Let's make it more like what we have here. So we actually have two shapes here, 1 and 2. So that's why we loop here. We're going to loop through every one of these pieces that we have. Those are the new shapes. Okay, and for each one of those it finds, it's going to parent those under this control now. So we're going to have a square, we're also going to have a circle, and we're also going to have this line once all is said and done. Those are all going to be combined under old control. So right now, both of these objects still exist. New control and old control exist, but I've got all the shapes where I need them, so I don't need this anymore. So that's why we delete new control, right? So that's gone. And then we delete old shapes, which was that square. So we get rid of the square, which leaves us with the pin shape. Okay, a little bit steppy, but does the logic make sense? Natalie, you've got a hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering, does Maya in any way keep track of if you use the control vertex to move or reshape a control, does it keep track of those transformations at all, or no?
No, the only transformation it keeps track of is what is on the actual transform node.
Okay.
That's it. You could use like a cluster. You could put a cluster on a specific vertex, and that cluster has its own transform handle. So that's a way that you could keep track of them, so to say. But it's, at some point, you'd want to make sure you got rid of that cluster. You're going to have animation problems down the road. So, Steve?
Yeah, could you walk through the process in Maya one more time?
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So we'll just grab a different set of these controls here. So let's get these two, and let's just isolate, so we're only working on two controls. So this control here, the green one, is my, let's think of that as the new control. This is the shape that I want to keep, okay? But this is the old control that's maintaining the proper orientation. It's already in the right place, it's in the right orientation. So I just want to replace the shape nodes, okay? So again, the dark blue one is old control, the green one is our new control. So I'm going to we're doing this by hand, so I'm not storing things in variables, but it's the same idea. Sorry, there we go. Same idea, but we're just doing it by hand. So I have the new control selected. Here are my shapes. And I'm actually going to change. I'm going to have a problem with that NURB circle shape 3. This really should just be named the same thing as the previous shape, but should have the number 2 down here at the end instead of 1. So I'm just going to rename my shapes properly. And let's go ahead and take the shapes. So I'm just going to copy and I'll just paste those into my script editor. So I'm not really saving them to a variable, but I am just kind of keeping a list here. So it's my own tracking sheet. This would be like the variable, okay? And we can also come over to our old control and do the same thing. So I'm going to rename this as well. Down to this other shape, call that shape 2. All right, so let's take this name of the old shape 1 and the old shape 2. Okay, so we have both of those shapes listed here. So this is the old shapes here. This is the new shapes here. Okay, so now we're going to go through the process of adding the new shapes to the old controller, the old transform. So the old transform is named right finger 1, knuckle 2, bind control. So I'm going to copy that. And that's my target, right? So my parent command, I have the object I want to reparent. That's going to be this first shape. And then the object is going to be parented to. So I'm going to replace this with the old control that I'm parenting it to. And then we'll take the name of the shape and just stick it in here as the object or the shape that I'm reparenting. And then again, my flags here, shape is true and add is true. So let's go ahead and run that command. Let's look here under this knuckle so we can see what's happening. So let's take a look at both of these. So this is the new control and its shapes. This is the old control with its shapes. So let's run this command. Okay, and you can see it now added that shape, that new shape in the hierarchy under the old control. It still exists under the new control too. Okay, so it didn't actually move it, it just kind of put a copy under the other one. So then we'll do the same thing with knuckle 2, or excuse me, this is the shape number 2. So I'll just copy and I'll just paste that over the previous example. We're going to run the same command and you'll see that's added that shape here as well under this node. Okay, so the new shapes have been introduced under the old control. So now I can delete this new control. I don't need this anymore. I got what I needed. Something funny happened. Rotated my control. I'm forgetting a step. I may have to freeze this group. Sorry, I've got this scripted. It's been a while since I've done this. I think I may have to freeze this before I go through this transformation. Freeze, and then let's try this again. There we go. That stayed in its default space. So I need to add that here. Before you start parenting, you need to right here, you need to freeze new control or ensure that it has been frozen before you did this. Okay, sorry to add that additional step there. So that was the first shape. Here's the second shape. We'll do the same parenting here. Run that command. Okay, so here are my new shapes. They've been added to the old control transform. So now I can delete the new control transform that will also get rid of its shapes. Okay, it's not showing this because we were isolated. What? Hold on a minute. I'm doing something wrong. Place that. Oh, of course it's clear. I'm missing a step, and we don't have time to look at it. Tell you what I'll do. As soon as we finish getting further along with this rig, I will go back through my script. I know we're supposed to freeze it, but I must be freezing it at the wrong time because it's rotating and it's not supposed to. So I will make a revision to this and I will send it to you when we're done. Okay, my apologies. And if we need to go through it again later, I will go through it again. Maybe for now, I don't know, the best thing to tell you is figure it out. If you want to use this method of mirroring controls, figure out how to replace a shape, or just reposition these by hand the way I did before, where I just was rotating the shape. For example, this shape really just needs to rotate 90 degrees, so I could rotate it 90 degrees and then make sure that I freeze it when I'm done. What's supposed to happen once you have this scripted out is you should be able to do something like this, where I can undo a whole bunch until I get all my controls back where they're supposed to be. There we go. Okay, what you're supposed to be able to do is really quickly and easily just select controls like so. Or here, I'll just do it in pairs. So we'll select that control and its associated control that I want to replace. So new control, old control. And I bring up my toolbox and I can just replace the shapes. Wrong one. Replace right there. What am I doing wrong? Replace. Oh, I've got too many things that are named the same. It's not going to work. That's why naming's so stinking important. So I've got to change the name here and change the name here. Okay, now I should be able to just run the two and run my script here. There we go. So if I had had naming right the first time with my controls, this wouldn't have been an issue. But unfortunately, I did not have it correct. So I would need to go through and fix all of my names anywhere where I have this just a NURBS circle. And that actually shows me that I have an error with my script itself that I have to fix. And there's our first example of why naming is important if your scripted tools are going to work. So I don't want to gloss over this, but at the same time, I want to move on. So you guys tell me how important it is to understand how to mirror controls at this point.
Very important.
And I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not.
I mean, I could use a quick, I don't know. Like, are you asking for if you need to go over it or in the code?
Yeah, well, I introduced something I didn't mean to introduce, but now I don't want to just say, don't worry about it, guys, because it is useful to know how to do it. But I don't know that we have time to work on it right this second. So if we want to derail and work on that, then we'll derail and work on that. So I'm asking, how important is it to you guys?
I would like to know, but
Fair enough.
Yeah, I'm with Ben. I would like to know how this works. I'm not necessarily dead set on time frame though. So if you like, I don't know. Ultimately, like the class structure is kind of your domain, and well, as long as we can get as long as I can get you to verbally like go agree that this needs to be gone over again at some point, then I'm fine. So
Yeah.
yeah, but whatever you think is best. But I do want this. Yeah, this whole thing would be great to know how to do in the future. So
Okay. I'm looking at my code really quick to see what I missed. Truth be told, it seems like it's mostly all there. it's all there. I'm not sure why that's not working. Okay, well, let me ask this again, and I will need input. Does the concept here, as we've laid it out, make sense to you?
Yes, I think so. I get the logical flow. I'm gonna have to dig through the commands, of course, and figure out what everything what I would need to make sure that like I need to review for myself personally, like how to get the selections to work correctly, such that you select the right thing and it references the right one in the right list, and then. So I just need to do a quick review personally for that, but other than that, it all makes sense. So
okay. All right. Let's try this. I just found one thing in my code here. I found here that I'm actually freezing. Where am I freezing? Right after. Yeah, it looks like right after I parent the object, the shape, I'm freezing the shape. Or I'm freezing the, is that right? I'm freezing the new control. So we introduce the shapes. There's still this relationship, right? Because it's like copying or it's creating an instance of the shape into the hierarchy of the old control. So after we've introduced it and the transformations are absorbed by that new transform node, then we freeze it. Otherwise, I think what happened was once I deleted the new control, it automatically flipped the orientation to match the parent instead of keeping the orientation it had. So let's try that really quick. I do want to make this work for you guys. So let's get it right now so that we don't have to do it again in the future.
sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And you know what? We won't do this a lot since we're going to take a little break here and talk through how to do it. Let's just script it together. I don't want to script things for you guys. You know, I obviously I never have wanted to script things for you guys, but maybe to see in you know, before we were just scripting because we were scripting, but maybe to say, hey, here's a reason to script, a real world example, maybe seeing that will help, I don't know, create a little more motivation for why scripting is important. So let's go through our pseudocode here, right? So the first thing we need to do is select our control, our new control, and maybe let's give these some different names that are a little easier to work with. So instead of new control and old control, I'm going to call this like object and target. So the target's the one that I want to send my object shapes to, okay? So I'm just going to get rid of this altogether. We'll do a new import. And the first thing we need to do is actually grab our current selection. So we'll just say cells equals, we remember we use that ls command with the selection or SL flag set to true. So whatever is selected, it's going to return a list to this cells object. Okay. And
Perfect.
okay. And the way that I want, so I'm going to just code this really simply right now. As in, I'm only planning to do this with one object and one control. But I think it's a little bit easier, in my own experience, to be able to say, select a whole bunch of the objects and then a whole bunch of their targets and do it all at once. I feel like I can get in a little bit more of a flow. We did that before, I don't know, maybe with a constraint script. I think it was our constraint script where you could select several controls and then several joints, where you could go control joint, control joint, control joint. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so you
in
could
there
set
somewhere.
up, yeah, you could set up something like that for this as well. But right now for what we're doing, I'm just going to get it set up for its, very basic functionality. So I want this to return, let's say first selection is the object. The second selection is the target. Well, I guess the target transform really is what it is. Okay, are you guys okay with that lingo? Object is what I'm stealing from, target's where it's going to. Okay. All right. So let's actually break these down a step further. So I can say object equals selection index 0. So that's going to be the first object in my selection array or selection list. And I'll just say TGT for target. I'll make it a little more robust. We'll go target equals, and that's index 1. Right, so I'm just taking the elements out of this list and assigning them to these two variables. Okay. Just so you know, I don't have to take an extra line to do that. Python's pretty slick. If I had the same command, selection equals true, and I know that I just want the first two elements of that list, I can actually just say object, comma, target equals, and that will do the exact same thing. It'll take the first element, index 0, and it will assign it to the first variable in this list. Take the second one, index 1, and assign it to the second element in this comma separated list of variables. Which is it's a pretty slick trick. Save you lines of code, especially if you had, several different items in a list you wanted to just pop out to a variable. Okay, so next thing we need to do is, let's come up to here, is we need to get all of the shapes for new controller object and all the shapes for the target as well. So let's just say object shapes. This is going to be our list relatives command. And for this command, we have to specify the node first of all. So object is our node. And we're looking for shape. Here, I'll pull up the, so we're not just shooting blind here. List relatives. Here it is, shapes. We'll list all of the children of this node. So this is useful because if there are multiple children, like with that pin, for example, it will return the whole thing. The other really nice thing about this particular command is you have this full path flag. And before, where I kind of ran into that issue where I had multiple controls that had the same name, I can have this return the full path, regardless of whether or not there's a control with the same name or not. I can get the full path. It was problematic before because I was going to have to type it in, but in this case, it'll just save the full path. So even if two objects are named NURB Circle 3, it will refer back to it's the root of the world until it no longer finds that. So I'm going to use that flag as well. So we'll come back to my here. So we're going to say shapes equals true, and we're also going to say full path equals true. Okay, and that will give me all the shapes of the object node. And I'm just going to copy and paste that whole line, and I'm going to change this to target shapes. And for the node that I'm going to be using, I need to change that to target as well in the list relatives command. Okay, so that will give me, I now have both the object and target selected, and returned to a variable. I will have all of the shapes for the object and the target node as well. So what's next is we're going to loop through all of our new shapes because we want to add them one by one to the target control. So we do a for loop here. All right, we're going to be going through each item in this array. So I'll just say shape in object shapes. I'm going to hide this keyboard for a minute. Right, so let's remember a for in loop is just going to take each element in this list one by one, and it's going to assign it to shape, run through our code block. It'll get to the end and come back and take the next element in object shapes and assign it to shape and go through it again, so on and so forth until it gets through all of the items in object shapes. So we loop through this. What do we want to do? We first want to parent the shape to old control or the target control. Okay, so we're going to say parent shape. Control is just called target. Add or just a. Than that. Did I just write add before? Do you guys remember? Add object. Oh, okay. Oh, there's my problem. Let me look at this really quick. Okay, that was my problem. This is correct, but we actually need to make one small change to our script. I totally forgot about this. Okay, freeze. This is what we're going to do. We're actually going to parent the new control to the old control. And that's so when we freeze it, which is what we would do next. So I need to be able to select all of this stuff. Remember, when you freeze an object, it resets all of the transformations of the object you're freezing and sets them to the orientation or the transformation of its parent object. So by parenting the new control or our object under the target and then freeze arrow transformations, we're setting the orientation of the object or the new control to be exactly the same as the target. Okay, so we're going to come in here and then we're going to freeze transforms on new control. I'm sorry, we've got these two different naming conventions going on, but I hesitate starting to put in object and target in the script when everything else already says new and old control. So again, we'll parent the new control under the old control, and then we will freeze the transformations on it, delete its history. And from there, we can start adding the shapes. So we're right here. Okay. So we need to do a parent command. And we're just going to take object, and we're going to parent it directly under target. Okay. We'll use the, there is a flag here, absolute, for parent. That will just preserve its transformations. That is the default when you do parent an object. It doesn't reset to whatever the new parent object's transformations are, but I put it in here just to make sure it doesn't mess anything up. So absolute equals true. Okay. Once we've done that, then we can freeze our transformations and delete our history. So freezing transformations, let's just, does anyone remember the command for that? Because it's
make
not.
Identity.
Oh, good, you remember it. Good. Very good. We're going to say CMDS make Oops, make identity.
That just makes a basically like a zero matrix, right? Like an origin matrix.
Yep, exactly. So, but that zero matrix is in relation to the parent, right? Transformations are still inherited from the parent.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right. So if that parent is, like the new object is oriented like this, where's my camera? Is oriented like this, and the old object is, or the parent is oriented like this, and I freeze this object, it will stay in this position, but its orientation now is going to rotate to match the parent. It'll say it's zeroed out, but it's matching the parent. So if you were to unparent it from the parent and make it a child of the world now, and let's say the world is oriented completely different, you would now have values here for this orientation because in relation to the parent, its identity is incorrect.
Right, because each transform has local matrix.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. So, okay, we're going to freeze the transformations on our object, right? We just parented it to the target, so we'll freeze our transformations. And I just already know this. We say apply equals true. And we could run the command here. I'll just run it so you know I'm not making stuff up. Freeze transformations. There we go. Apply equals true, and then it does for translate, for rotate, and for scale. Normals it has turned off, and I think that's the point normal. I can't remember what PN stands for. So we're going to say apply equals true. Okay, and then translate equals true, rotate equals true, scale equals true, normal is false. And that's just specifying we want to freeze all of these. We want to freeze, translate, rotate, and scale. Huh, I totally typed that in the wrong place. Let's cut that out. And that should be here in my make identity command. So let's make sure I got that all right. So make identity on object applies true, translate, rotate, scale, but not on the normal. And then while I'm here, I'm also going to delete history. So that's the delete command, and we could just specify the object I want to delete history on, and then CH stands for construction history. So we're just deleting the construction history on that object, not the object itself. So now we'll get into this latter part here. So we're going to loop through and parent our shapes to the old control, right? So we've started this here, object shapes. We're going to parent to target. Okay. And we need to specify, remember we have that shape flag, shape equals true. And I want to check one more thing here. Is this parent? Yeah, this is parent. We're going to use this flag here, relative. So it will preserve existing local object transformations relative to the parent node. Okay. So we'll just specify that here as well. Say R. And again, all that's just to help it maintain its current orientation. We don't want it to rotate to match anything. Okay. That's going to add all of our shapes, right? And then come back here again. Then we just need to delete new control, and we need to delete the old shapes. So So let's start by deleting the old shapes. So we'll say cmds dot delete. We just say target shapes. Command here, and we'll delete object. All right, so target shapes, those were the shapes that were there before we started adding these new ones. And object is the control. Oh, and you know what? I actually need to make one slight change to this. When I parented object under target, it changed the path. May have changed the naming as well. So I need to make sure that I return this parent command. I return the name of the new object here. Make sure that it's current. And let's just verify that this actually returns a list. So I just need to return the first name. The first index in this list is going to be the name. So I'm just going to, down at the end of this command, I'll just put in index 0. So that'll just return the first element of the list returned by the parent command, which should be the new name of object if it has given it a new name or a new path. And then let's just verify and see if this even works. I'm going to do a bunch till I get all these controls back in place. Right, and again, I probably need to fix my naming. We'll see. The fact that we have that full path that we specified here may actually fix this for me. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to select the object first that I want to keep, and then the target. And then let's give this a run. Okay, something didn't work here. No object matches name. What is that? Group 1, left finger, control 1. And that specific shape on line 15. Okay. My problem here is that I saved the name of my shapes here, and then I changed my hierarchy. So the object is actually in a different place. We returned the full path here, so it's saying that node doesn't exist because we're specifying. Does that make sense what I said by full path, by the way?
I think so. You have a, yeah, like you have a, like if you have a duplicate, then it will like the only way that a duplicate can exist within the scene view is if it has like a 1 at the end. But if you have a duplicate inside of groups, then you have that line that separates the group name and then the actual node name. So
yep, awesome, perfect.
So
yeah,
that's basically just the full scene tree. Is that what's happening?
That's exactly what it is. So this first, here is a name here, right? The first pipe represents the world. So you can think of that almost like your C drive, right? And then every time you hit another pipe, you can think of it as another folder, or we're dropping down another level into a hierarchy. So you're right. It's the scene tree. It's exactly what it is.
So it's a non-relative path to the data block. Is that what's happening?
Non-relative. Yeah, exactly. It's referencing back to the world, to the root. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And again, it only uses that if it finds there's another object of the same name somewhere in your scene. So my problem came here again because I saved the full path because I know I have naming errors, but then I parented object under a different object. So I changed the path to that object. So the shapes now, they're obsolete. So what could I do to fix this?
Could you find object shapes after you rechange object?
That's exactly what I need to do. So I'm just going to take both of the target shapes. I can find those earlier, but I like to do like operations at the same time if I can. So I'll just move those down here. I'll do those after I change that parenting structure. Okay, so same thing in my scene. We'll select the object and then the target. And let's try to run this again. I do get a little error here. Let's see what this says. More than one object matches name nerd circle 2. So again, I'm back to kind of a naming error, but I think because I had the full path, it was okay with it. So it did the job, you can see here. So let's go ahead. I'm going to run this one more time. So I'm selecting a control and then the target. We'll run this. I think it did its thing. It may have just jumped a little bit. Let's try that one more time. I'm just going to hit G now that I've run this. So control, target. Oh no, it worked. Just hit G. So this is still working. It does. There are two objects that have the same shape name, but it's working because I specified a full path. And then press G. Okay. And you can see now that if I go to the actual take the shapes away, right hand finger, you can see that I am oriented correctly. I'm zeroed out, so my transformations have all been reset like they're supposed to be. My orientation is still correct. Aesthetically or visually, my orientation is what I want it to be as well. And so I've just gone and replaced the previous shape. So we do the same thing here. Let's just work our way down again. And let's verify. Let's start with this one here. What is this? Knuckle 3. It's right here. So we can verify that this knuckle 3 or finger 3 knuckle 2 will also go away. It should delete it. So I'll hit G. No, I have to go back and run this again. Okay, and I don't know if you saw there in the list. It did go away. It did delete that knuckle for that control. And now this control is correct. What's cool about this too is you could already have constraints in place because constraints affect the transform. They don't affect shape nodes. So you would be able to replace a shape that's already constrained to something else. So now that we have that script done, what I'm going to do is let's just delete the rest of these from the right side, and let's just go through the process one more time of how I would actually mirror controls. Okay. The idea is I would select all of the controls on the left side that I'm already happy with. I'm not happy with this guy. I don't want him there. Let's just delete the hand for now. This is only for fingers. So we'll select all of those controls, and I'm going to Control D, duplicate. I'm going to Shift P to make them all children of the world. I'm unparenting everything. Okay, then I'm going to Control G to group them all into one group. Then I'm going to take that group and I'm going to scale it across the x-axis in -1. So I'll just set x to -1. And then I'll go through and just start running this script. Go through that process of replacing one control with another. So take the new one and then the target. That script. We just go through to each one of these, and I just hit G now that was the last thing that I ran. Focus my view really quick. You know, this is taking care of the fact that I scaled everything in -1, right? It's getting rid of the old transformations, aligning everything with the correct orientation of these group nodes or these joints. Because I did have to create, and let's not forget that you do actually have to create controls for this other side. But there you have it, okay? One thing you'd want to probably go back on or have as part of your script is once you replace them, you probably ought to have your script also rename your shapes correctly. So, you know, because I didn't change the name. So this is, even though it's on the right finger, this is calling it left finger knuckle. So really down towards the end of this, I should probably have, I suppose I could even do it here as I parent them. You could say, use the rename command. Sorry, that's really small. Rename, and we want to rename shape with the name of our object, right? So object, essentially we want to say object, and then we want to put the word shape after it. So I know we talked about a couple different ways to concatenate. I still like to use the form where I put in a string. I put in this percent and then S where I want to insert a string, and then whatever else I want to type into the string. So shape, and at the end of the string I say percent, and then what I want to replace it with. So in this case I'm going to replace it with the name of our object. So that should take, in this case, it should take this whole thing right. Wait, did I do that right? Yeah, I did that right. It should say right finger 01, knuckle 01, bind control. It should take that name. Why do I feel like I'm using this command wrong? No, that's right. It'll take this shape and it'll rename it to that exact string with this shape suffix at the end. And if it finds more than one, which in this case it will automatically add the number 1 to the end of it. And you know what? I realized I do not want to do this here in the for loop because we're already going to have shapes with that name. So I'm going to want to wait until after I delete the shapes here. Once I've deleted the target shapes, then I would run through this one more time. I could actually say the same thing. I need to get them one more time. I need to get my target shapes one more time. So I can just say target shapes equal, let's just take this whole command again. Let's paste that here, right? Because now we have a whole new set of shapes because we deleted the previous ones here. And then we can say for shape in target shapes. Oh. I copied one too many times. I got rid of that rename statement. So cmds.rename, and we're going to rename shape with name of the object with that shape prefix. All right, that's one way you could tackle it. And let's just verify that that worked. We'll take this is finger 3, knuckle 1 bind control, which we can see we still have left knuckle and NURBS control shape 9. I'm going to just replace, this will be my target. So this is finger 2, knuckle 1. Let's see what it does. Run that. And it looks like that worked. So it's renamed my new shapes the way I expect to see them. Okay, exactly the same as the, no, not the same. What did I do wrong, guys? Did I use the wrong shape? I did. I don't want the name of the object. I want the name of the target. I want the old name. I want the new name. Let's try that one more time. Knuckle, finger 2, knuckle 1. Yeah, that one worked this time. Okay. Okay. Wow, that was quite the derailment. But I hope that helps. This is the type of thing, every time you do rigs, you're going to have to go through this process. And either you're going to spend a lot of time trying to get your controls to look symmetrical, or they're just not going to look symmetrical, or you take a little time like this and write a script, and now that's going to save tons of time every single time you go through this process. No, I'm a fan for the latter, but some of you will say, forget scripting, it's dumb and I hate it. And I never want to do it. Okay. So great. Now that that's done, I
Hey,
still
wait,
have.
Clayton.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
So this is just about like the whole process of mirroring in general. So when we had gone through the rigging class last time, I think the way that you had taught us to do it was to grab all of the groups. So if we were to grab all of the finger groups and then group all of those together, or sorry, duplicate it, group all of those together, mirror it across, or use your scale, and then take all of those out of the original group, and then they were set, like they were all good. Does that not work? Or is there like a reason to not do that? Because then each group would have like a negative scale factor in it.
Yeah, no, you're right. We did. So we did all of that, and then we took the previous control and we parented it under the same. Sorry, let me say that again. We took the mirrored control or the scaled control, and we parented that under the same group, or the correct group, its respected group on the other side, and then we froze the transformations. Is what we did. If we had to do that, you have to create those controls on the other side of the body first in order to get the correct orientation, because the orientation's all been reversed, right? But if you then, here, let me show you what I'm pretty sure this is what I taught you because we hadn't gotten into scripting yet, and I wanted you to have a way to be able to do this. So what I'm thinking is you would still have to select all of these joints over here in the right hand. So let's select all of these. And you would still create a control for all of them. So let's do something real obvious here. Let's create a clover. No, a cone. There we go. Let's create a cone. And these are all oriented correctly. If I remember right, what I told you to do before, you don't have to select the groups. You can select just the controls. But we would duplicate those controls and group them and scale them in -1 for X to get them over into their correct position. I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff right now. Okay, follow so far? We're good so far?
Yeah.
So let's take this control here, for example. The group itself is oriented and positioned correctly. Okay, this control is going to have problems. Let's unparent it because it's got the incorrect orientation. It should look like this, but it looks like this. And we've also got -1 scale value, which is also problematic. But if you were to take that control and parent it under the same group, like so, and then freeze your transformations, your transformations would match that of the parent, and then you could delete the other control. Right? So that is another way you could do it. But
well,
it does,
so if there's a -1 scale value on the group or like the control group, that's a no, that's a bad.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Because if you remember, that's going to be like when you scale a parent node, that means the children of that node are actually transforming within a skewed space. So if you did have things flipped and you wanted to move like everything locally in the x-axis, and let's say you expect them all to move this direction, it would actually, the x direction is inverted. It's scaled the opposite way, so your controls would move opposite each other.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. But again, that is a perfectly valid option, right? As long as you get that control into a correctly oriented group and then freeze it, you end up with the same result. So either is valid. Great. Man, that's all we get to do today. What is today? Is it Wednesday? It's our last time meeting today, or this week, unless we spend a little time on Friday. But who wants to do that, right?
You could spend time on Friday.
Good. Tell me where you guys are. Did you create you have controls created for the hands? You got as far as I got, or did you go further?
That's as far as I got.
Okay. I want to say just make controls for the rest of the body. In fact, I'm going to say that. Make controls for the rest of the body before we meet again on Monday. I'll go through. I've got a script, so I'm just gonna clip my script and do it. But I told you I was gonna walk through this entire process, start to finish, so that you guys at any time you can refer back to this and say, oh wait, how do we do this? So I want you guys to be that far in case you don't have it scripted. At least you can build it out. And then on Friday we can go over some things if you'd like to, but we'll just plan on continuing with the rig on Monday. Okay. Yeah, I think that's where we are. And I'm sorry to derail like that, but again, these things are important. It's probably better to have this done now so that we can
I like automation.
Flex a little more in the future. Yeah, right. Automation's great. So, okay, do you guys have any other questions you need from me today, since we just hit time?
So, sorry, just to confirm. So have all of the joints, both left and right side, done by Monday?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep. And again, I'll go through it all again on Monday, but if you're already done, then we can go through it a little bit faster. I think I got to all the comments. Okay. All right. Well, great. Maybe we'll see you on Friday. If not, have a great week/weekend. And on Monday, we'll get these controls finished up and start building some FK.
Sweet.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
I appreciated the derailment, even if it does mean that we're a little bit behind on the rest of everything.
No, good. That's what we do. That's perfect. So awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Clay.
Thank you.
Bet.